Beloved, welcome back to the shop. Today's video is going to be very controversial. It's going to make a lot of you very mad, but I no longer carry a folding knife, a folding pocket knife, and I'm going to make the argument that you shouldn't either. I got my first folding pocket knife from my grandfather when I was 8 years old. He gave me a Charade old-timer 3-blade, the old bone handles. I carried that so proudly. It was the same knife he carried, and I just wanted to be like him so much. So that really started me. He told me a story of why he always carried a pocket knife, and I should as well. His grandfather was crossing a pasture back in the homestead in Oklahoma, and a mean bull ran him down and got him down on the ground and just about mauled him to death. As he was fighting for his life, he somehow was able to get his hand down and get his pocket knife out of his pocket and get the blade open, and he started hacking and cutting on that bull's nose until it finally let him go. And he always attributed that pocket knife to save his life, and my granddad never forgot that, and neither did I. So I carried that pocket knife for years, until probably about the 90s or so, when Benchmade came online and all of the nice folding knives with the pocket clips on it, and I adopted that. I thought that that was the superior way. And I have carried, for the better part of 2 decades, the Benchmade 940 Osborne, an excellent knife. How many of these have you guys bought? How many of these have I sold for Benchmade? Because it is a fabulous knife. Well, I guess it's been what? Maybe 2 months ago or so, Mr. Jason Barr, one of the members of the Middlemen, my most trusted inner circle, recently purchased a knife company, Ridge Runner Knives, in North Carolina. North Carolina makes some very fine knives, and he made a bold statement to me when I saw him. He said, when you start carrying a fixed blade knife, you'll never go back to a folder. And I kind of I chuckled to myself. I'm like, well, that's a bold statement, because I have carried a lot of fixed blade knives. Growing up hunting with my grandfather, I walked many miles with regular hunting blades and skinning blades on my belt, and it was fine for the field when you're out doing that sort of work, but it's completely inappropriate for EDC. First off, it's difficult to get to. You know, you're always looking around trying to get it in the sheath. Several knives I poked right through the sheath by not getting them in right. God help you if you need to drive with one. You know, it jabs into your seat. It's just not practical, and it looks kind of stupid, in my opinion. I don't know. When I see dudes out carrying long Bowie knives and stuff out in public, I don't know. I don't think it's socially acceptable. It just is odd. Odd people typically do that. Well, what changed my mind and why I will not carry folding blades anymore is the horizontal carry, the horizontal appendix carry. Mr. Barr sent me these 2 knives. This is the Primitive Woodsman Foxfire, and this is the TEPFOR Armory No. 13. Now, when he sent these, especially this one here to me, when I first saw this, I didn't really understand it, and I thought it was a little bit of an odd knife. It was very non-traditional. I've named it Abaddon. Abaddon, or Abaddon, is God's judging angel of the pit in the book of Revelation. It's God's hand of divine judgment, because that is appropriate for this knife, because this is a very spooky and scary knife. This, how I described it the other day between these two, and I go back and forth, and I was trying, I was thinking, well, you got to have a favorite. You got to pick one and stick with it, but you don't. They have very different roles. This one, as I described earlier, is the crazy hot girlfriend that you just can't get out of your mind, but you know is no good for you. And this one is the good, reliable Midwestern girl. This is the one that you want to have children with. This is the one that you want to put a ring on her finger. Different, but one's not, depends on the time of your life, right? We've all been there before. This has changed, these 2 knives have changed the way that I carry EDC, and I no longer carry folding knives because it is so far superior in the way that they mount. Let's take a look at these knives. I'll give you my impression on them. In this video, I'll show you how I sharpen them, I'll show you how I carry them, and I'll show you why I'm falling in love with them and why they become my EDC. Let's start with the TEPFOR No. 13. This is the one that I wanted to carry. The handle is some sort of a butyl rubber material that is always grippy in any situation. Rain, wet, grease. It is an incredible material for handle. I was told that it was maybe something made for sailboats or sailboat mats. I don't know. It looks kind of like a horse mat, but man, it makes a beautiful handle. The more you look at this, the more you'll see this is a handmade custom knife. This is made by Kyle at TEPFOR. Look at the tapering in the tang. Handmade. Do you see the 13, the Roman numerals that make up the jimping? Even the 13 is in his maker's mark. You can see right there. 13 is an interesting number. Biblically speaking, you know, it's considered to be, well, by some theologians, a number of rebellion. One more than 12. In the book of Revelation, on the 13th year, we have the rebellion of the 12 against 12 kings and that. So I don't know if that's true or not, but it's always been kind of associated with it's been an ominous number. And this indeed is an ominous knife. I wanted to carry this because I've absolutely fallen in love with it, but unfortunately, I find that it's not suitable for EDC. And that's no hit against the knife. It was never designed to be. This is a knife for killing. It's plain and simple. That's what it's for. This is a savage, frightful knife, and it is a knife that you'd want to carry. If you had to, God forbid, get into a knife fight, of all the knives I own, this would be without a doubt. The way that the point is, how sharp it is, especially the hook and the handle, how it locks in, no one's going to drag this knife out of your hand. And the way it carries in this brilliant Kydex sheath horizontally, the way that hook comes down here, no matter what you do, you're always going to grab it. You're not going to slip off of that. It's just, it feels like a fighting knife. This is a knife that, I mean, if you were going to go and have to duel with some man, and there was a bunch of different instruments on the table, this is the one that I would grab. Small, light, sharp, lethal, wicked. And look at the penetration that this thing would have. Absolutely brilliant. And the manufacturing, just the quality of it, every time I look at it, I just see something unique and new. This really impresses me. I don't possess the ability to make something like this, and I really marvel at Kyle, his ability to produce this. Just the utility and the black blade and the copper ferrules in there that are already starting to oxidize a little bit. It is an absolute, it's just something about it. It's truly, truly special. I started, when I chose the two, you know, immediately I was gravitated towards this one, and I carry it. Well, let's just do it. We have time. We got time, right? And of course, no pro-ho can be pro-ho unless you carry a belt or wear a belt. A belt is essential for manly dress. My grandfather would never let me leave the house without a belt. He would go get one of his own and punch holes in it and make sure I had one. But man, this is a pretty good sized knife, and this carries very well on the belt. This is very intimidating. Talk about weird. You look a little weird when you go out with this, you know, I was talking about. But I don't care. You know, I'm 50 and I'm a YouTuber and I'm eccentric and I do what I want. No, I don't care what anyone thinks anymore. And I still carry this a lot. So I'm losing weight here. I need to go one more hole. I keep punching holes in my belt. You should have two belts, gentlemen. Black and brown, brass, and always brass. But man, this carries great. And this, if you're going to wear a flannel or a jacket, it completely disappears, and it's always right there, always right there. There are situations that I don't feel is appropriate to carry a firearm, rarely, or maybe illegal, and I always will put this on. I carry this in my FUPA along with my G19X, and I'll strap this on, and if I leave home outside of town, I'm carrying this one, because I'm not worried about EDC stuff. I'm not worried about opening boxes. If I get into harm's way or something looks sketchy, I'm going to have my hand on this thing and it's going to come out, and, well, goodness, it's terrifying. Some dude came at me with this that was motivated. I'd turn around and run the other way. But it's for a good-sized knife, you won't even know it's there. I work with it all day long. I've been in the car for 6-7 hour drives, never felt it, never even know it's there until you need it, and man, is it good. And I love that hook on there. That hook really makes it come out good. Now, I'm not saying you can't cut cardboard and you can't do EDC stuff, but it's just too big and the blade shape doesn't lend itself to it. This is a fighting knife. This is a knife you would put on a plate carrier. This is a knife that you would God forbid, defend yourself. But I absolutely love it, and it looks cool. It looks cool, man, and that appendix carry right there is really where it's at. So I was trying to live with it, you know, in the shop, day-to-day work, and I just found it's just too long. I open a lot of cardboard boxes, you know, just all the things that we do for utility, and it's just not suitable for that. It was never designed for that. It's too big, and the blade, it's just too pointy, and it's just not it. It's just not where it's at. Not that I don't carry it, different roles. So then, trusting Mr. Barr, I thought, well, let me try out that little Foxfire. Let's take a look at that. This is the Primitive Woodsman, also a fine North Carolina company, the Primitive Woodsman Foxfire. It is a micro, basically a tiny bushcrafting knife. It's got the Scandi grind. This little hole, actually, I'm going to go get something. I'll be right back. This little hole is intentional. It's designed to fit a .22 cartridge, the bullet. And you put that in there, that's what I was told. It doesn't fit. I never tried it until right now, but I was told you were supposed to be able to put a .22 cartridge in there, break the bullet off, and then pour the powder out if you had to start a fire. But that whole plan doesn't really work. Never mind. Anyway, so this little Foxfire has that bushcrafting DNA. Mr. Barr also sent me the first Primitive Woodsman that he sent me was this. This is my bushcraft knife. This is also my favorite hard work duty knife, but you can see the similarities here. But this is too big to carry, you know, and again, it's that vertical carry, which is just no good for EDC. But this one is where it's at. It's got that same or a similar type of rubber handle, of course, obviously full tang, Scandi grind, so it is a very tough, durable knife. Very small, but even with, I've got big hands. I wear large, extra large gloves. Even with that, normally, I can get 3 fingers on it and it locks in very good. You got a nice finger choil on the bottom. You've got a good grippy, really grippy surface that never disappoints no matter what environment. It's always good. It's got a nice lanyard, and this is one of my favorite things, this little glow-in-the-dark bead. I had it, the first time I noticed that was I had it on I took off, you know, going to bed, I took my pants off and put them by the bed, and I got up in the middle of the night and I saw that green bead glowing, and I thought, that's very cool. You'd be groping in the dark for a knife, you'd never find it, but with that bead on there, you could easily see it. Very, very nice. This right here is my everyday carry. The sheath is very clever, a nice Kydex horizontal carry sheath with, I don't know what this material is, this belt loop material, but man, oh man, this stuff is tough. And pull the dot snaps, you know, the best snaps I've ever used. This is where it's at, gentlemen. This is how I carry it. You slide this on here, and it's a little bit nicer to go on because you don't have to take your belt off, and you clip that good snap on there, and these are serious snaps. And this is EDC perfection right here. No more digging in my pocket, no more opening knives and closing knives. I pull this thing out of here 50 times a day, ready to work, open boxes, dig out slivers. It's a strong, just a robust, just a tough little EDC knife that just melts away on your belt and is right there where you want it. You know, that's when your hands naturally come to this area. This is where you hold your hands. This is where you're working, and the knife is always there. It's always there. You can look down and you can see it, and you can resheath it. That looks pretty good with that little bead on there. A little bit of flair, and you know Proho likes to have a little bit of flair. But this is a wonderful knife. It's going to fit on any belt you carry, no matter. It's just going to melt away. It doesn't look too goofy. Not that I care. It's small enough. It doesn't. You know, it's not like the TEPFOR, you know, which is pretty intimidating. You walk around looking like Crocodile Dundee. But this I really love. So this is my EDC knife that has replaced my 940. It's replaced my Microtex, which I love them as well. But if you want just no nonsense, just probably the best carry knife and the best position, and just pure utility, man, this is really where it's at. While we're on the topic of knives, I'm going to give you a little bit of bonus material, the care and feeding of these fine knives, how you should sharpen them or how you should not sharpen them. You don't have to sharpen knives all the time. This is your huckleberry right here. Here's what you want to do. You want to get a leather strop. Make one or buy one. This is made handcrafted by HCO. Mr. Barr sent this to me. This has been my go-to. It looks like it's on a nice piece of walnut. What you have here is you have rough side leather, and this green material is a jeweler's rouge. If you were to imagine like sandpaper, imagine like 50 billion grit. I mean, this is super, super fine, and this is called stropping the blade. Now, this has been done by barbers with straight razors forever. And you take this green stuff and you really push it in there and you impregnate this leather with that stropping compound. Now, this is what's so cool about this is it doesn't require any skill. It's hard to learn the angles for sharpening blades, but with the strop, and I would go out, I have not sharpened these knives, and I use them very heavy, and I've had them for several weeks now. They're as sharp as the day I got them because I strop them almost every other day. You pull this thing out, and you just go backwards. Now, the angle's not critical. You just want to go beyond the edge a little bit, and you want to pull this backwards with pretty good force. And count the times. Not very many times. I'll come do this 7, 8, 10, maybe a dozen times, and I'm making sure that I'm changing the angle so I get the tip as well. Like that, stropping it, just pushing hard. And then right here at the choil, sometimes you don't get much there. I might work that a little bit extra. I'll flip it over and do the same thing. Strop that thing backwards. No skill. Even East Coast, simple enough for an East Coast man, which is hard to believe. Even he can, for the first time in his life, have a sharp knife. And that is it, right there. That's it. When you see the chefs, on the steel, back and forth, backwards, that's what they're doing. They're not reprofiling the blade. They're basically bringing all of those, the material, as the blade, if you look at it with a microscope, it starts to fold over, it's just bringing those back up to a point. And you can do this so many times before you need to profile it or resharpen it. It's going to make your blade last longer, and it's easy, and it's quite enjoyable. Any knife benefits from this. The little Foxfire, same thing. This one's really easy to strop, and it just seems to get sharper and sharper. When you do this, it gets a nice polish on it, and do it backwards. And you can make one of these. Just get yourself some 3M 77 spray adhesive, get yourself a piece of rawhide, use your old belt, and glue it on a board so you've got some structure, and that's it. That's really all you need to do, and your knife will stay sharp if you take care of it. It's just so simple, and it works so well. Jason also turned me on to, and this is not a brand deal. I'm not shilling here. I'm just helping out a friend that has helped me out by hooking me up with some awesome blades. He sent me this stuff here, this Wicked Wax, and this is a nice protectant. It's a little bit better than Ballistol because it lasts so much better. And especially if you have a knife blade that's got a lot of carbon in it, they tend to rust. If you live in a godforsaken place like the swamps of the South, I can only imagine what takes place down there. But this really has some stick-to-itness, and it's really nice. I like this stuff, the Wicked Wax. And I put that on here every time I strop, especially if I'm going to be going into anything wet or wintertime. Very, very nice. Look at that. Boy, does that not give you the fizz, gentlemen? The horizontal carry on these fixed blade knives it's really where it's at. I have no doubt that you'll really like it. Sheath design, we could probably go over that a little bit, is excellent. I love it. I love these two knives. I will put a link over to Jason's site, and I go over there and tell him I said hello. He'll answer any questions you have. He's a very discerning knife seller. He's not selling anything that he doesn't stand behind, that he doesn't really believe in. And I really am grateful to him to turn me on to these beautiful knives. They have just brought so much joy to my life and utility, and I just couldn't be happier. So that's my take on horizontal carry, fixed bladed knives. Take it for what it's worth, but I think it's the best way to carry. I did misspeak. I think I said Ridge Runner knives, Ridge Runner blades. He sent me a cool Zippo. Got the little logo on it. RidgeRunnerBlades.com. Now there has been some talk, there's nothing certain, but there's been some talk of doing a Wranglerstar knife, one that we are designing together. Go over there and poke Jason, see if you can put that up on the front burner, but that's something that I'd be very interested to do. And it's going to be very similar to this. I'd like it to be a little bit different. We have a few different options, or just needs for Proho, but it's going to be something very similar to this if we do it, and it will most likely be one of these knife companies. And again, that's something it's in discussion. There's nothing really written down, but it's something I'd like to do. So I'm poking Jason on this to see if he can't make that happen, because he's got a lot of pull with these excellent North Carolina knife builders. Now, a lot of folks take issue, well, you know, East Coast man's jumping on board. Oh, I see, you know, here you carrying an East Coast knife. North Carolina is West Coast. This was sorted out a long time ago, so I don't have any problem carrying proper West Coast knives, so you're gonna have to deal with that. May God bless you and your families. Please keep us in your prayers, and we'll see you all on the next video.